Most people go fishing to escape the noise of everyday life, to sit with the sound of the water, the wind, and nothing else. But every once in a while, someone goes out on what should be a peaceful fishing trip, and comes back with a story that chills them for the rest of their life. These are true fishing horror stories, real accounts from people who swear that what they experienced was not just strange, but terrifying. So sit back, turn down the lights, and stay until the end, because the last story is something even experienced fishermen still refuse to talk about. Our first story begins with a man named Daniel, who loved night fishing on a lake in northern Minnesota. It was late summer, warm enough to be comfortable, but still quiet enough that he could hear everything. He anchored his small aluminum boat near the center of the lake, casting his line and enjoying the stillness. For the first hour, nothing happened. Not a bite, not a splash, just silence. Then, a sound echoed across the water. It was faint at first, almost like an animal, but not quite. As it grew louder, Daniel realized it sounded like a woman screaming. Not calling for help, not shouting, screaming in pure terror. The sound stretched across the lake, sharp and echoing, and it didn't sound natural. Daniel grabbed his flashlight and shined it toward the shore, expecting maybe someone had fallen or been attacked. But the screaming began to move. What had been coming from the left side of the lake suddenly jumped to the opposite shoreline, too fast, too impossible for any person to run. Daniel froze as the screaming moved again, now coming from somewhere behind him, closer than before. He swept the flashlight across the water, his breath shaking. And the moment the beam hit the surface, the screaming stopped, entirely, like someone had hit a switch. Later that week, shaken by what he'd heard, Daniel mentioned it to a local who told him the lake had a long, dark history. Several drownings. A few unexplained disappearances. And every once in a while, fishermen reported hearing cries or screams that didn't belong to anyone living. Daniel never fished at night again. Our second story comes from a teenager named Evan, who used to fish off the old wooden dock behind his family's cabin. The dock was decades old, worn down, with loose boards and gaps that let you see the dark water beneath. One afternoon, Evan sat at the end of the dock with a bucket of worms, casually fishing and listening to music. But something strange kept happening. Every time he dropped bait into the water, something yanked it away instantly, not like a fish biting, but like something snatched it the moment it touched. Frustrated, he leaned over the edge to watch. For a moment, he saw nothing but dark water. Then a pale shape slipped under the dock, too big and too smooth to be a fish. When he leaned a little lower, trying to get a better look, a hand white, thin, and unmistakably human reached up from between the slats of the dock right under his feet. It wasn't grabbing, just resting there as if feeling for something. Evan screamed and sprinted back to shore. The next morning, he convinced his father to check the dock with him. When they walked out, the boards where Evan had been sitting were scratched long, thin marks, like fingernails dragging across the wood. Nobody ever swam near that dock again. Our third story involves a fisherman named Sam who set out early one morning to catch walleye on a large reservoir. The sun was just rising, fog drifting low over the surface. As he made his way across the water, he spotted something strange up ahead, a boat drifting slowly in circles. It wasn't anchored, it wasn't being steered, just drifting. Sam approached cautiously and called out, asking if anyone needed help. No response. As he pulled alongside the boat, he noticed details that made his skin crawl. The fishing gear was still neatly laid out, a pair of sunglasses on the seat. A thermos of coffee sitting in the cup holder, still warm. But no one was aboard. The only thing out of place was a series of deep marks along the gunnel scratches that looked like someone had been gripping the edge hard before being pulled away. Sam radioed the search and rescue team. They examined the boat, collected it, and investigated. But no missing person was ever reported. To this day, no one knows who was on that boat or what took them. Our fourth story centers on a couple, Mia and Jordan, who enjoyed early morning kayaking trips on a quiet river. One morning, just before sunrise, they launched their kayaks and began paddling upstream. The air was crisp, the sky slowly brightening. Everything felt calm until the fog came in. It rolled across the water quickly, too quickly, enveloping them in a thick gray haze. They could barely see more than a few feet in front of their kayaks. Then they heard it, the sound of paddles hitting water behind them. Slow, steady, rhythmic. They stopped paddling and listened. The sound continued. Jordan called out, asking if someone else was on the river, but there was no answer. As the paddling noises grew closer, Mia felt something brush against her ankle beneath the water. Not fish, not seaweed, something large, smooth, and deliberate. She yanked her foot up and nearly tipped her kayak. A moment later, just as suddenly as it came, the fog lifted. The river was empty, no kayaks behind them, no one around. And the water was perfectly still. Our final story comes from an experienced fisherman named Hunter, who relied heavily on sonar to track fish. One summer afternoon, while fishing on a deep lake known for its steep underwater drop-offs, he noticed a massive shape on the sonar screen. It wasn't a school of fish. It wasn't debris. It was a single, solid object, bigger than any fish known to live in that lake. At first, he assumed the sonar was glitching, but the shape began to move, slowly, purposefully, following his boat. The deeper he went, the closer the shape drifted, rising from the dark depths like something that had been waiting. Hunter tried to ignore it until something slammed to the bottom of the boat, hard enough to knock over his tackle box. He panicked, started the motor, and sped back to shore. Later, he reviewed the sonar recording and felt his stomach drop. The shape had risen all the way to the surface directly beneath him before disappearing. He never went fishing on that lake again. Nature is beautiful, but it's also unpredictable. When you're out on the water, you never really know what's beneath you, or what might be watching. If you've ever had a strange experience while fishing, share it in the comments, because your story might be the next one we tell. And remember, out there on the water, you're never really alone.